The temple in Solomon's day was made out of 5 rooms, one inside the other. On the far end of the innermost room was the Holy of Holies. This small room was only to be entered once a year, for this was entering into the very presence of God. To gain access to the presence of God, the high priest had to pass through a thick, multi-layered veil. He was only to go there on the Day of Atonement. So God's presence was veiled from the people because of man's sin. In the Old Testament days, when someone sinned, an animal was brought to the temple. A priest would slay that animal, putting some of its blood in a bowl and burning its carcass on the altar. Once a year, the high priest would take the blood into the Holy of Holies, sprinkling the blood on the mercy seat to atone for the sins of his people. This inside room had no windows or light, but was lit by the presence of God's glory. The only furniture in the Holy of Holies was the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was a wooden box covered in gold. The lid for the box was called the mercy seat, and it was made of gold with angels on top. The Ark contained the carved stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, a jar of manna that let us know that God would provide, and Aaron's rod that budded to let us know that God would always choose the high priest. The message of the Holy of Holies was this: God cannot tolerate or excuse sin. The soul that sins must die. This truth was written in stone and could not be changed. However, God's justice was covered by his mercy. The high priest, God, would enter with the blood of the lamb and sprinkle it on the mercy seat. When man's sin was covered by that blood, he would enter God's presence without fear. People offered these sacrifices as an act of faith, looking forward to the day when Jesus would shed his blood on Calvary as our substitute. He himself, as our great high priest, went into the presence of the Almighty with his own blood to cover our sin. The moment Jesus died, the thick temple veil was rent from top to bottom, opening the way for us to go into the presence of God whenever and wherever we choose. We have the right to go into God's presence to request anything we like. We can go into his presence for provision, help, or worship. We can enter the Holy of Holies just for fellowship, to spend time alone with God. As you pass through the veil into Station 6, thank Jesus for giving you access to God by his death on Calvary. Lay the cares of this life down as you enter his sanctuary. Take your prayer requests and leave them at God's throne. Focus on the Father. You have access to his throne. You have access into his own holy presence. He deserves your worship. He desires your fellowship. He longs for your undivided attention. As you go beyond the veil to Station 7, spend a few moments with him. In the past, God's presence was thickly veiled off by our sin, but now God's presence has put out the welcome mat because of the sacrifice of Jesus.